What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Ned Mac with DFS Stats and Facts. I'm right back in the lab this weekend, man. Feeling really good about these games. I know y'all definitely should have got some money on Thursday with those Thanksgiving games. Gave out some great advice, some great players that did turn up because I do what I do. I do what I do. But yeah, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit the bell, tap that, do all that, get the alerts and everything. I appreciate all the love thus far. But let's get into it with these Week 13 matchups. We already had 3 games played on Thursday. You saw how that went. You saw the players go off. So a couple of y'all, especially in the playoffs, should already be like a little head start, or somebody played y'all. But a lot of people ate on Thanksgiving, clearly. But you know what I mean. DFS value, I'm going right into it. Benny Snell, he's at 4,700 this week. He had 21 attempts last week, 98 yards. Cleveland is 25th against running back, so he should be pretty good for Pittsburgh. It's the whole Pittsburgh Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns battle. You saw what happened the first game, so this game should be a little bit different though, because they're going with Hodges over Rudolph for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think it's going to be a much tougher game for the Browns. But yeah, Steelers are going to be coming to work. Ryan Tannehill, 5,700. I like him this week, very cheap for a quarterback, and he's been doing the damn thing thus far. Week 12, he had 259, 2 touchdowns, gave you 33.4 fantasy. Ryan Tannehill had like one bad week. I think that was like his first week they tried him out. Since then, he's been balling. So him and the Titans included. I got another Titan on here that y'all should already know. But yeah, Ryan Tannehill, I like what he's doing, man. He's only had 4 interceptions since he's came in, so that's pretty damn good with 10 touchdowns. Um, Indianapolis does rank 13th against quarterbacks, though, so let's keep that in mind as well. And it is going to be an AFC South matchup, little battle. So we'll see what's going. And Colts definitely need a win. Christian McCaffrey, he's at 10,005, a little higher, but we'll probably get you the value. Look, Christian McCaffrey's been doing it all year. I feel like I mentioned him probably the most now on DFS Stats and Facts, but yeah, last week he had 22 attempts, 64 yards, touchdown, added on with 9 receptions, 69 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So he was all over the place as usual. This week he is 21st against. He is facing Washington, who is 21st against running backs, and 28th when it comes to stopping the run. So Christian McCaffrey again, nothing's going to stop for him. He should definitely go off against Washington. I would be highly surprised if he didn't. Also, I want to bring up Ronald Jones. He's at 5,100 this week. Has a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. He had 12 attempts last week, 51 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions, 16 yards. But Jacksonville this week is 28th against the rush. You saw what Derrick Henry did to them last week. And 29th against stopping the rushing, against rushing yards. But yeah, so Ronald Jones should have another good week. Probably a better week than last week. But we'll see. Stars in charge. Another guy who I feel like I've been talking about all year now is Lamar Jackson, man. He's at 7,000. He has a tough task this week against San Fran. And this is probably definitely my game of the week, as should be a lot of other people's game of the week, man. Everyone's talking about it. This is the game right here. But yeah, last 3 games, Lamar Jackson, week 10, he had 33.4. Week 11 had 32.8. And week 12, he had 36.3. He has San Fran, like I stated earlier this week, but I don't know, man. I don't think that's going to stop him. He's just like, he's played against some pretty tough teams thus far this year, and he's been getting it off. So, to be honest, I think Lamar Jackson's going to keep it going. That's why I had to bring him up again. Excuse me. But in that same game, I go over to the other offense, and I got to bring up my boy Kittle, who came off the injury last week. He's 6,100 this week. He had 6 receptions just last week with 109 or 129 yards and a touchdown. And Baltimore this week, obviously, they are actually 5th against tight ends, so it'd be crazy to see what Jimmy G does with that, with Kittle. But he's a playmaker. Kittle, he blocks if he doesn't have the ball. When he has the ball, you see what he does. And he can get open, and he has the height like a receiver. So I like George Kittle. I liked him all year. But, again, that is going to be a really crazy game. Another guy who I sort of already rung up, but Derrick Henry at 7,600, 19 attempts, 159 yards last week with 2 touchdowns, and had 1 reception for 16 yards. Again, with the AFC South battle, another good game on the low. But Indianapolis is third against running backs and seventh against the rush. So it's going to be interesting to see if Derrick Henry can keep that going. But he has been doing it for these last like 4 or 5 weeks now. And look, man, I think it's really starts with Tannehill, and he's been doing it. And the team gravitates around the quarterback, right? Quarterback's the captain, so they just been doing it. I like what the Titans are doing. Sam Darnold, man, I gotta bring this guy up. I cannot believe I'm bringing this guy up, but I talk about you when you're good. Talk about you when you're bad. But Sam Darnold, man, 6,100. He had 315 yards last week. I was very impressed. He had 2 touchdowns. Although he only has 13 touchdowns with 10 interceptions and a passing rating of 86.29, I had to bring him up because he did the damn thing last week. Jets. I don't know if the Jets are going to be like cruising now, but Sam Darnold, I got to bring him up because I've been bashing him all year. So he actually did his thing last week. Elite sleeps. I'm gonna start with my boy Phillip Lindsay, and it's his fault that we sleeping on him at this point. But late in the year, he is at 5,000 with only 5 touchdowns this year, which is really sad. But week 5, he went off against the Chargers, and that's what they got again this week. Just last week, he had 1 touchdown. No, I'm sorry. In that game, he had 1 touchdown, 4 receptions and 33 yards back in week 5. Last week, he had no touchdowns. Week before, he had no touchdowns. So he's actually due for a touchdown, and I hope he does get it because Broncos are going to need as much help as they can get, especially at this point. Le'Veon Bell, 7,200. Another elite sleep, especially for this week. Week 9, just to show you where he's been at. Week 9, 20.1. Week 10, 16.8. Week 11, 17.2. And week 12, 15.8 in fantasy. He's definitely projected, in my hypothesis, he's projected to snap on Cincy this week, who was 26 against running backs, and dead last in stopping the run. So I think he's going to do all right this week. And honestly, he's been silent, but still deadly. It's just so many other options at running back to go over Le'Veon. Haven't really talked about Le'Veon, but yeah, and they were struggling too with the Jets. But Jets is getting a little groovy now too. And of course with the addition of Ryan Griffin, who's been pitching in for them. But yeah, man, look out for Le'Veon Bell this week. I don't really like his price though, 7,200, but I mean, stats don't lie. Jonathan Williams, man, I like this guy, and I like his price. 5,300. Week 11, he gave you 18.7. Just last week, he gave you 24.1. And he's also been giving you 100 plus on the ground in both games and adding a touchdown in his last game. They got Tennessee this week, who's 24th against running back, so another possible breakout game for him. Can't really go wrong with Jonathan Williams, man. He's got something to prove out there, and he's been doing it. Devlin Hodges, elite sleep, man. 5,100. I'm saying he's a possible elite sleep with everything that's going on against the whole Cleveland and Pittsburgh beef now. And he's coming in, and this week he has a full game. Just last week, though, he had 118 yards and a touchdown, and that wasn't even a full game. So we'll see what he does. Brings me to bums to stay away from. My boy Balaj down in Miami, and it's not because you're playing the Birds, my man. You just really haven't been doing it. You've been stinging it up. He is at 4,000. He had 3.6 last week. Only had 7 attempts and 13 yards. And now he has a tough task against the Birds. I would have been saying that even if I wasn't an Eagles fan, because we actually can stop the rush. And the Eagles are 10th against running backs and 5th against stopping the rush. So I literally just said that. But yeah, Balaj, I don't know. I don't see him getting it done this year. This week. But here's a guy who hasn't been getting it done all year, and that's Jared Goff. At 6,000, look, this guy is a legit bum to stay away from. And even took my boy, because I had to leave him alone, because they benched him, Andy Dalton spot, for permanent bum to stay away from. Look, 212 yards last game. 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. In the last 3 weeks, he has thrown for 5 interceptions and no touchdowns. None. And you know his receiving core, right? He currently has more interceptions than touchdowns as well, at 11 touchdowns and 12 picks. I don't even know I'm about to read his numbers, but week 10 he had 6.7. This is a quarterback, mind you. 6.7. Week 11 he had 6.2, and just last week he had 6.4. At this point, Jared Goff shouldn't be on your fantasy team. He shouldn't even be on your bench. he should be on a waiver wire permanently. If you're in the playoffs when it comes to that fantasy, you don't even have to care about this. But if you're thinking daily fantasy and you're thinking, oh, Jared Goff, I really hope you're not thinking that, but just don't do that because Jared Goff hasn't been on anything. And he's really been hurting other players in the likes of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, etc. Really nothing has been getting done. So, yeah, I'm just a little disappointed in Jared Goff. But anyway, that brings me to defenses when chips 2, fantasy chips 2. And first off, Rip, I'm going to go with Eagles defense this week. For obvious reasons, they're playing Miami. They're at 3,600. They gave you 11 fantasy points last week. They only allowed 17 points, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 6 sacks, which is pretty damn good. Miami this week is 27th against defenses this year. So I'm expecting a lot from the Eagles defense this week, but I'm just leave it at that. Moving on to the Jets defense, who is 3,700. This week, they had 18 fantasy points last week. Only allowed 3 points, 1 interception, 1 defensive fumble recovery, and a defensive touchdown with 1 sack. Jets defense, like I said, man, the Jets are trying to turn up all of a sudden. So not a bad defense to think about when they're going against Cincy this week at 28th, who was 28th against defenses. Baltimore's defense is slept on this week, so I threw them on here because I don't think it's going to matter who they play because they've really been doing it. 2,800 this week if you wanted to pick them. 6 points allowed last week with 2 interceptions and 2 sacks. But they do have that tough game against 49ers that could go back to back. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, moving right along to my running backs that were running-ish. We got my boy Leonard Fournette, who went off last week, 7,300. Gave you 36.9 fantasy, 24 attempts, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tampa Bay is ranked first against running backs, so that's going to be very interesting. He also had 9 receptions, 62 yards as well last week. My boy Nick Chubb, the stud, 8,100. A little expensive, but he gives you that value. 28.4 last week, 21 attempts, 106 yards, and 1 touchdown. Pittsburgh does rank 4th against running backs. He also had 3 receptions and 58 yards. Thing about Nick Chubb, though, he's one of those guys that's going to give you your fantasy points regardless. And even with the addition of Kareem Hunt a few weeks back, he's still been on this thing, and I think that's going to continue. And Kareem Hunt, honorable mention, has been getting at least 13, 14, 15 fantasy points as well, week to week. So another little sneaky guy to think about. But Mark Ingram, 6,000, gave you 27.8 last week, 15 attempts, 111 yards. You know what the Ravens are doing. He also had 1 touchdown in the rushing department, as well as receiving with 1 reception and 7 yards. Little cheap receiving, John, but look, he'll take it, and I know fantasy owners will take it as well. San Fran ranked 6th against running back, so I really can't wait for that game. It's going to be probably the biggest game tomorrow. Yeah, because I think everyone's waiting for that game. That's a possible Super Bowl matchup. Possible. But I don't know. And you remember the old Super Bowl, but the little horrible bowl, blackout bowl, Beyonce and all that. But that's old news. We talking about right now. Wide receivers wilding though. We had a couple of them last week. My boy Godwin for Tampa Bay gave you 40.4. 7,200 this week. 7 receptions, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns just last week. Jacksonville ranks 12th against wideouts. That's who he's facing this week. So we'll see what happens. Godwin has been pretty damn good, and so it looks like he's battling right now with Mike Evans for that number 1 receiver spot. That's what it looks to me, because it's been weeks where Godwin's getting a lot of love and Mike Evans getting nothing, but then it's also been weeks where both of them were getting love, and then O.J. Howard's not getting anything. So I don't even got to mention him anymore. But, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, he gave you 27.4 last week, 7,500 this week, 6 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had now, I'm sweating about this one because I actually have DeAndre Hopkins on one of my fantasy teams. And New England this week, you saw what they did to Amari Cooper, their number 1 receiver. And I'm really nervous about DeAndre Hopkins because Belichick said, was giving him all these compliments. And if you look him up in a dictionary under receiver, his face will be there. So I think they're going to have some type of remedy for him. So I'm a little nervous about that, but I got to start him. DeAndre Hopkins, man. But yeah, Stephon Diggs, another guy, 26.1, 7,400 this week. He gave you 5 receptions, 121 yards, and 1 touchdown last week. Seattle ranks 18th against wideouts and 29th against the pass. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Diggs will be all right. Only if Cousins is all right, though. So, again, it goes back to the quarterback. I was surprised about this next guy, but he's been getting the love now a little late in the season. But my boy Jarvis Landry, 39.8, 6,300 this week. 10 receptions, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh ranks 11th against wideouts. And then rookies on the rise. I jumped right into it with Deebo Samuel. He's at 5,200. Again, in that crazy game. I got a couple picks with that game. I might just have to do a little captain mode myself with that one. But A.J. Brown as well at 4,700. Gave you 26 and a half, 4 receptions, 135 yards, and a touchdown. And Indianapolis ranks 28th against wideouts. So, A.J. Brown, man, again, he's on the turning up Titans, the different Titans, man, with Tannehill at the helm. They've been doing it, so look out for A.J. Brown, man. Definitely a rookie on the rise. I like him a little bit more than Deebo Samuel this week. But tight ends on the turn up. I said it would happen. I said it before it happened, and then it started happening. Kyle Rudolph. Now, look, I had Adam Thielen on my fantasy team earlier in the year, and I told y'all once he went down to look out for Kyle Rudolph because he was getting the love before a lot of these players. But Kyle Rudolph, man, 4,200 this week. He had 17.7 last week, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown. All 5 of his touchdowns, okay? He only has 5 of them this year. All 5 have come from week 7 to week 11. Around the same time, I told y'all to grab this man. So, try to tell y'all, Seattle ranks 30th against tight ends. So, he could have another great week. Yeah, Kyle Rudolph. But anyway, this guy, I think it's Mike Gesicki. I can't really say his name too great. But he's at 3,600 from Miami. He had 3 receptions, 28 yards, and a touchdown last week. But Philly this week, who was 4th against tight ends. I got a couple people, obviously, before him. But if you really had to pick up a tight end, a cheap tight end, I guess, go ahead, do your thing. But I would even think about this person that I'm about to say before him, and that's Ryan Griffin. On the Jets right now, 4,300, 10.3 last week, 3 receptions, 13 yards, and a touchdown. He's been doing it, and they have Cincy this week, who's 23rd against tight ends. So, big tight end pickup to think about at 4,300. That's not bad. But I like Rudolph before both of them. That's why I sort of set him first. And this guy who should have been on here all year, but it did not plan out like that for this team and himself, is Travis Kelce, 7,200. The Raiders is 24th against tight ends. In his last 3 games, he has had 7 targets a game, and 2 touchdowns out of the 3 games. So Travis Kelce looks like he's back to normal. But honestly, which brings me to my quarterback question, is Patrick Mahomes back to normal? Because honestly, he hasn't been that great since he's gotten back. And I'm a huge Patrick Mahomes fan, but I'm just stating facts, and I got to be honest here. It just hasn't been looking that great for him. And at this point, especially, the Chiefs would need him at 100%, like really gone off like he has done in the year before and before the commercials and MVP this and MVP that. They need that Patrick Mahomes back. So I think they'll be fine, but yeah, I've been noticing a little bit. So I had to say that. But yeah, man, I think that was about it. I gave y'all a lot. Not really doing badass kickers because at this point, if you don't have a kicker on your fantasy team, regular fantasy team, I don't know what's going on with you. You should have a decent kicker. You can have Sly, Gonzalez. Vinatieri had a lot of tough weeks, but you could go with him if you wanted to. But now it's more, I'm really more focused on the DFS part because it's like, yo, this is where it's at. This is where the money is. And these weeks, man, you can earn a lot of bread on these sites, man. But mainly DraftKings. I'm sticking with DraftKings, man, because I know DraftKings is a little bit better than FanDuel and all the rest of them because it's a lot of other sites now. But DraftKings is where it's at. We try to make it rain out here. But yeah, man, it's your boy Ned Mac. I will be doing my picks later on Instagram at DFS_Stats&Facts. I will be on there for the team picks. But yeah, man, get your money, man. Let me make sure I ain't forget nothing. Make sure. Nah, that's it, man. I really love y'all. I appreciate everything. I'm gonna see y'all in a couple days. Where we at? Yeah, Saturday. So yeah, I'll probably see y'all on Wednesday before the primetime game Thursday. And yeah, get your money. Have fun.